It's about creating happiness in community. So, I read the notes today and they wanted me to talk about myself, so I actually don't know what I'm going to say right now. But I was a young person, just like you at one point, obviously. But I started 3 businesses before I turned 16. My first business was when I was 12 years old. You guys probably don't remember, but in the old days, back when I was a kid, they used to deliver newspapers to your home. Right? Do you remember that? You guys probably don't remember when they used to deliver. So you used to have paper routes. Right? So in Calgary, where I was from, you had to be 12 years old to have a paper route. So I applied for paper routes in 4 different regions of Calgary, and I contracted them out to people who weren't 12 yet. And it was my first foray into child labor, but it was my first business. So all these kids delivered the papers, and I collected the cash, and I paid them next to nothing. No, it was actually, it wasn't quite like that, but it was my first business. I was 12 years old. And then I joined Junior Achievement when I was 14, and I started a bookmark company. And when I was 14, I won a gold medal for the company's program in Alberta. And I started a bookmark company, and I created a bookmark called the Weatherworm. And the Weatherworm was this fabric knitted bookmark that had little eyes on it. And the yarn turned pink when it was hot and blue when it was cold. And I sold them all through the drugstores and various things in Calgary. And I had my first business problems. Once again, it was all the kids in my neighborhood in my basement knitting these weatherworms as fast as they can. And I couldn't get the supply out fast enough. They started selling so quickly. So kids started skipping school. It was horrible. I didn't know how to control the whole business. So I was learning how to build a business at that time. But when I was 16, I got my first job, and it was at Denny's. And I got fired from Denny's after 2 weeks. I was there, and it was a horrible experience at the time, I thought. And it was, and so I crossed the street. If anyone knows Calgary, right across the street's a McDonald's, and I went across the street, and I got a job at the McDonald's across the street, and I got fired during the training program. So I felt devastated by this. At 16, I thought I'm all washed up. My resume is already spotty. Got my two firings. I have no references. So it was pretty natural for me later to decide to start my own business. So I went traveling when I was 22, and there was nothing available but cruises, coach tours, and resorts. And the only other option was backpacking. And it was my inspiration. Everyone looked for their aha moment. I went backpacking on $10 a day, and I realized very quickly that there was a lot of young people doing the same thing. People with disposable income, young professionals, but they didn't want to cruise, a coach, or they didn't want to resort. They didn't want to be isolated in all-inclusives. They didn't want those, a coach tour where, it's all about drinking and eating as much as you can. And cruise ships at the time were growing bigger and bigger. There was a race to build bigger and bigger cruise ships, and they were selling it as a selling feature, like, wait, we're building a cruise ship that has 2,000 people. And people thought at the time, well, somehow that sounds better. Being on a cruise ship with more people sounds so much funner. And it was the exact opposite of what I thought about travel. But there was another side of travel that I learned about really quickly that shocked me. And these are some statistics of recent. This is 20 years ago, because I started Gap Adventure in 1990 when I was 23 years old. But I came back from traveling on a mission. I just knew that this is what I was meant to do. And it was about changing the way people looked at their holiday time. It was before the internet, before Google. Most of you don't even remember that time, what it was like before Google. You couldn't research travel the same way. Some of the statistics, 866 million international travelers traveled in 2008. But by 2020, the World Trade Organization believes that there will be 1.6 billion tourists. As you can tell by all of you guys looking into travel is cheaper, faster, easier than ever before. There's discount airlines taking people. You can go to an international country for $600-700. It's becoming easier for people to do. There's bigger planes now. You hear about all these big planes that they're being able to transport people, which means the flights are going to be cheaper. And there was a shocking statistic, though, that out of $100 spent on a vacation on a tour by a tourist, only $5 actually stayed in the country itself. Massive problem. Tourism is great. Travel should inspire, should change lives. Local people aren't benefiting. And that causes all kinds of social problems, environmental problems. It makes it unsustainable. for future generations to travel. When local communities aren't benefiting, they're not able to preserve some of the most beautiful sites that we want to see. And for your children, they won't be there. And not only that, it breeds hostility towards tourists. And it changes the way people look at tourists around the world. And you no longer get an authentic experience if people view tourists differently because local people aren't benefiting from you being there. So, and probably the conundrum of all of that is of the 40 poorest countries in the world, tourism is the second largest source of foreign exchange after oil. So tourism has the ability to transform and to change people's lives, but has to be done in a totally different way, because up until this point, only $5 every $100 spent is staying in country. So we have a huge conundrum within the tourism industry, because at first when they started doing the studies that showed that local people weren't benefiting, the first thought was, stop traveling. Don't travel. Travel within your home country. But then the most in need are the ones that are affected because of the 40 poorest countries in the world, tourism is the second largest source of revenue after oil. So now my story kind of jumps into the business sides because I was an entrepreneur, right? I had my weatherworm. I had my contract newspaper business. I employed every kid in my neighborhood when I was 16. And I started a business that was geared towards a purpose, changing people's lives with core values, and the main purpose was to engage people to a higher purpose beyond travel. That you're wanting to travel is a great thing, but I want to engage you to a higher purpose, that your travel can impact people's lives, and your holiday time can not only be sustainable, but it can change the way people live all over the world. Values-based business. My business model is based on happiness, creating happiness in community. And people think that that's far-fetched. But happiness is basic things about feeling connected, feeling like you have control in your life, feeling like you are part of something greater than yourself. It's not about what you have or what you can buy or what you can eat. A lot of people think that happiness comes from many different things, but really it comes from very basic business fundamentals. So a business model of happiness, as far as I'm concerned, is not a far-fetched idea. And going beyond the triple bottom line in business. So triple bottom line is something that everyone's been chasing for a decade, about a company that evaluates people, planet, and profit. Like engaging, a business that's profitable is a successful business, we all know that, but a business that looks at people and planet as well, equally, by the mere existence of your company, how you affect the people and planet. That's really what triple bottom line is. And that wasn't enough for me when I decided to start my business. Going beyond the triple bottom line is what we wanted to do. And it's all about innovation. And for us, there was 5 concepts. And I don't know of any other company, this is kind of my own thinking, that goes beyond the triple bottom line and adds passion and purpose. Passion and purpose is everything in a business. Because I sell services, we're a big travel company, we're all over the world now. We're in 38 countries around the world. We run trips in 100 countries around the world. But passion and purpose is everything to my people. It's everything to my business model. I sell services, and I don't actually execute my programs every day. 2/3 of my employees I'll never meet in their entire careers with me. And I have to give them a reason to get up every day, come to work, love the brand, love working with my company, and as well, I want them to achieve their potential in their lives. Totally different type of leadership. So we started with this guy, Delphine, 20 years ago. And Delphine lives in the rainforest. We ran our first trips into the rainforest, and he flawless tours for 20 years. I went back to see him just last month for our 20th anniversary to have a discussion with Delphine and his community and see the impact that we've had in 20 years of bringing groups to his community. And in an area where they had no education, no thought of education, no thought of reading and writing. They were a rainforest tribe. They built a school over the course of the last 20 years with the funds from our groups. And they now sustain 6 communities in the area that now are educated. And his son there on my right just got a scholarship to study in Russia, which is just amazing. Considering 20 years ago I walked into the rainforest to meet the community, and there was no thought of even having school or reading and writing wasn't even a thought. That's a positive impact with a business. And how you can create passion and purpose and also at the same time be a profitable business and create change and engage our travelers to a much higher purpose than just travel. On the Inca Trail, we're the largest Inca Trail operator in the world by far. We consume 32% of the global permits on the Inca Trail. Number two, we consume 32%. Number two is 7%, to give you an idea of how big we are on the Inca Trail. We travel through an area where there's zero employment for women. Zero. And we identified a problem that the younger generation is moving to city centers. Why? To serve my passengers, by the way. And they're no longer weaving. And all of their history and storytelling, everything is done in their patterns of the Incan patterns of their weaving, and they're not passing down their traditions. So we started the Women's Weaving Co-op. And the Women's Weaving Co-op weaves all day and teaches everyone in the community and the younger generation. And we bring our passengers through to consume everything, consume the products. Fantastic way of looking at a business problem, solving it, and creating sustainability. We started our own Street Kids home. We funded to buy the home last October, all through our passengers. It cost me nothing. But all those kids are on the street selling stuff to my passengers. For me to turn a blind eye to that would be wrong, because I'm benefiting here in Canada. My business is growing. I'm getting all kinds of awards, but kids are on the street selling my drunk passengers stumbling out of a bar, selling them chiclets and cigarettes and things in the middle of the night. And so for me to not do anything. So we started a Street Kids home in Cusco. And last year, through our travelers, we funded and bought the house and gave them a 100-year free lease for the home. And it engages our passengers and some of our volunteer trips as well. In Tibet, just 2 months ago in September, we flew in 60 doctors and nurses into Tibet. We were able to restore the vision of 300 Tibetans in 10 days. And this, again, is an area where we run a lot of passengers, but this is what we call creating happiness in community and engaging our customers and adding passion and purpose to our business model. And it's all about happiness. And to celebrate our 20th anniversary last month, just a couple weeks ago, we ran a circus right here in Toronto. Right? Our goal was to raise $50,000 to build an eye care center. It's called the Gap Adventures 2020 for our 20th anniversary, 2020 Eye Care Center in northern rural Cambodia, where there is 20,000 people affected by blindness and have no access to care. And blindness is a social issue for us. If mothers can't raise their children with sight, there's all kinds of social problems that go along with that. And we had it right here in Toronto. We wanted to raise $50,000 to build a hospital. And we raised $140,000 and changed our thinking. And so with that money, don't clap, I don't have much time. And with our money, we're now doing mobile camps in Tanzania as well, with the extra money that we raised, as well as building. And that's changing in an innovative way to celebrate the birthday. Because as our 20th anniversary was approaching, I was all stressed out what to do. People said, oh, let's do a concert, let's do a big party. I said, oh, forget it. But when you do great things, people notice. And your business, like we got a humanitarian award from the president of Tanzania for our work in Tanzania. It wasn't about the fact that we run great trips. He never once mentioned, you guys run great safaris in Africa. It was about our work with AIDS education in Tanzania. Google asked me to come and speak to their employees. Google never once asked me, do you run trips to China? They could care less. It's about our business model. And Apple, one of the greatest brands in the world, picked 3 companies that inspired them to do movies on. And we were one of those companies. And it's because and they came to film in our office. And that's coming out, I think, in a month on the Apple site and playing on all their Apple stores worldwide about how we've changed the world with Apple products. Because when you do great things and you inspire people, companies aren't interested in just what you do. They're interested in why you do it. And I'm going to leave you with one last thought, and this is to all of you young people. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. That is the only thing that I could tell you that should inspire you today. I know passion is an overused word sometimes, but just in your heart, do what you love, and I promise you'll never feel like you worked a day in your life, because I haven't, since I got fired from McDonald's. Anyways, thank you.